I'm Gwen Eiffel, and welcome to the Washington Week Webcast Extra, where we pick up where we left off in the regular broadcast. I'm joined around the table by Jackie Calmes of the New York Times, Michael Fletcher of the Washington Post, and David Wessel of the Wall Street Journal. David, you wrote an interesting story this week that I want you to fill us in on. Is it true, as your headline said, and your story backed up, when in doubt, just say yes, that the economy does better under Democratic presidents?
Right. Alan Blinder and Mark Watson, who are professors at Princeton, Blinder having been in the Clinton administration, Watson's a numbers guy, he's not political. They say that since World War II, the economy has averaged 4.4% growth under Democrats and 2.5% growth under Republicans. But then they say, so what explains this? And their basic conclusion is it's more luck than policy. It has to do with oil price shocks, take a big chunk out of the economy when Republicans are in office. There are surges in productivity, efficiency in the workforce have to do with computers and stuff.
But not about policy that's promulgated by the Democratic presidents?
One thing where is a little bit, could be, is that there seems to be stronger consumer confidence when Democrats are in office, and they say that, well, maybe that reflects people's belief that the Democrats will do more for the middle class or something like that. But they basically say it's more luck than smarts.
As we suspected. Jackie Calmes, let's talk about something else that went on this week, which is Vice President Joe Biden got on a plane, flew to the Asia pivot, which we were talking about so much before, South Korea, Japan, China, just at a time when they're all engaged in a mortal conflict about two rocks in the East China Sea, which this fight about who gets overflights, who controls them, who actually owns them, and the vice president sailed right into the middle of it. Did he make any kind of progress?
Well, when you looked at this, the big picture, the whole trip showed how snake-bit the administration has been about this Asia pivot, that they've tried. The president came to office, he wanted to wind down the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, get out of that region and start paying attention to Asia. And every time they try to do it, something happens. And so Joe Biden went. It was only supposed to be sort of a, show the flag and show that we're still trying to pivot if the events elsewhere would just let us do it. And the Chinese chose this time to confront Japan in effect, by declaring this zone that was theirs and daring Japan and the rest of us to fly through it without letting them know. And so Joe Biden to the satisfaction of the Japanese, let the Chinese leaders know that this was a confrontational, unnecessary move and should not stand. He didn't tell them to take it down, but let the Chinese know exactly where the U.S. stood. So it was, on the one hand, good timing in that he was able to do that.
They knew he was coming, and they'd still lay down the law on this issue. It just seemed like a necessary poke.
Yeah. And I asked some people about that, Japanese and Chinese officials this week, and both of them on both sides of this issue, looked at me like, you Americans, you always think it's all about you.
And you know what? And this is one of those cases where probably isn't. Well, let's stay offshore, except go to the Caribbean, where Michael Fletcher got to go to write a story, he says. But it was about Puerto Rico's incredible financial dilemma. Now, it seems to me like you go from financial dilemma to financial dilemma.
He didn't want to go to Detroit. So
right, so he was in Detroit, so he ends up in Puerto Rico, where it turns out there is a real financial crisis underway.
Yeah, indeed. Since July, when Detroit filed for bankruptcy, people have been asking the question, where's the next Detroit? And in many ways, it's in Puerto Rico. Now, there are big differences. Puerto Rico cannot file for bankruptcy, and Puerto Rico really has strong constitutional provisions against default on its loans. But that said, they face a huge, huge debt burden, much bigger than Detroit, $70 billion, and that's not even counting unfunded pension liabilities. And the problem with their economy is that it's been in recession for, I think it's 8 years in a row now. And the big problem there, they've always relied on tax breaks, big tax breaks for U.S., particularly pharmaceutical manufacturers. And that tax break expired in 2006. Manufacturers have been leaving. Job numbers have gone down, and there's really nothing else to replace it. You think of Puerto Rico, people were joking with me in the newsroom, we're going to this beautiful island, this tourist destination. It's really not much of a tourist destination. Like 6% of their economy is tourism, which is much less than most Caribbean islands. So there's a lot of change that needs to happen there. And
does any of that change involve a the federal government bailing them out?
You see, that's that word again. You know, no one wants to say it on both sides, both in San Juan and Washington. People are adamant. They're saying no bailout, but the White House did appoint a team. It's almost a control board type team. It's not with that kind of stated power, but they have people in Puerto Rico sort of advising the Puerto Ricans about how to sort of navigate this debt crisis.
That's great. 3 stories we couldn't get to on the regular broadcast that we got to around the table in the webcast. Thank you all so much. While you're online, get a little holiday shopping done. Our panelists give you their best book picks on the winter reading list. And we'll see you again next time on the Washington Week Webcast Extra.